Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, good to see you all here today. And it is my great pleasure to be with you to present the key findings of the Global Forest Resources Assessment 2025. The insights we will go through together are a result of 4 years of work and direct contributions, as we already heard, from more than 700 experts globally. This process started in 2021 with scoping of the reporting content and continued with improvements of the online data entry, review and dissemination interface, organization of 14 regional capacity development and reporting workshops, reviews of national reports, data analysis, drafting of the FAO report, its editing, translations, and much, much, much more. So as you can imagine, we are really excited and happy to be with you today and to share the result of this process. It seems that my remote... Oh, it is working. Thank you. So before we dive into the actual hard numbers, I would like to remind you of 2 key facts of the Global Forest Resources Assessment process, or FRA, as we know it. First, as we already heard, the results that will be presented today are based on country data reported to FAO by officially nominated FRA national correspondents. These experts have been responsible for coordinating their national teams, compiling the reports, and communicating with the FRA Secretariat in Rome. The reports prepared by these experts and teams cover 194 countries and areas, covering more than 98% of the global forest area. For the remaining 42 countries and areas, the reports were prepared by the FRA Secretariat as desk studies using the best possible data available. My second point is that each FRA is a standalone product which collects time series data. This means that during the reporting process, the countries and areas are encouraged to revise their historical numbers when new and better data become available. During the FRA 2025 process, we have seen great progress in many areas of data collection and reporting, and as a result of that, we'll now have a better picture of trends in forest resources and novel news to share. With that introduction, let us see what FRA 2025 tells us about the extent of forest and its changes over time. According to the data reported to FRA 2025, the world has currently 4.14 billion hectares of forest. Forests cover 32% of the global land area, and there is approximately half a hectare of forest for every person on this planet. The largest proportion of these forests, 45%, are found in the tropical domain. The second place is held by the boreal domain with a share of 28%, and temperate domain is home for 17% of the global forest area and subtropical domain for the rest. In the last 35 years, the global forest area has decreased about 200 million hectares. As you can see, the decreasing trend is apparent in Africa and South America, where the forest area also continues to decrease. In Europe, we can see a steady increase in forest area since the 1990s, and in Asia, the trend has been positive for the last 25 years. If you focus on the 2 rightmost bars of these regions, you can also see that both the rate of forest area decrease in Africa and South America and the rate of forest area increase in Asia and Europe have slowed within the last decade compared to the previous one. Finally, the time series on screen shows also that in North and Central America, the forest area has increased slightly, whereas in Oceania, there's a small decrease in the forest area within the last 35 years. Now let's zoom out a bit and look at the impact of these changes on the global picture. Here, the positive message is that the annual net reduction of forest area, which considers both forest area losses caused by deforestation and its increases due to forest expansion, has been halved since the 1990s from 10.7 million hectares per year to 4.12 million hectares per year. However, as you can see in the two rightmost bars of this graph, the annual net forest area loss in the past 10 years is larger than in the previous period. We are up to, from 3.68 million hectares of forest area reduction per year in the last period to the already mentioned 4.12 million hectares per year. Now, let's see what underlying factors have led to that. The dynamics of these changes can be explained by this graph that shows both components of the net change, deforestation and forest expansion. Now, just to be clear on the terminology. Deforestation refers to conversion of forest to other land use. Forest expansion is the opposite of deforestation and means establishing forest to land that was under another land use until then. The good news here is that the rate of deforestation continues to decline. As you can see in the red negative bars, we are now down to about 11 million hectares of deforestation per year, instead of the almost 18 million hectares per year in the 1990s, and roughly 14 million hectares per year in the previous period. The other positive news, while not displayed on this graph, is that now we observe a reduction in deforestation in all regions, including Africa. However, as you can see in the upper part of the illustration, the forest expansion has also decreased when compared to the previous two periods. This explains why the positive trend in reducing deforestation is not fully reflected in the forest area net change trend we discussed in the previous slide. With the reduction in forest expansion, the impact of deforestation on the net change increases, and therefore we can now see an increase in the rate of net forest loss in the last decade. Now let's move on to a higher level of detail and see what kind of forest we have in different regions of the world and how they are changing. Let us start with a quick recap on how the reporting on forest characteristics works in France. We divide forests into two main categories according to their origin: naturally regenerating forests and planted forests. Furthermore, naturally regenerating forests have a primary forest subcategory. Primary forests are naturally regenerating forests of native tree species where there are no clearly visible indications of human activities and the ecological processes are not significantly disturbed. The other main category, planted forest, includes two subcategories. The first category is plantation forest. These forests are intensively managed forests of one or two species, even age class and regular spacing. For this category, we collect also information on plantation forest of introduced species. The other subcategory under the planted forest is other planted forest. These forests are planted or seeded, but do not meet the criteria of intensively managed plantations and can actually resemble naturally regenerating forests in their mature stage. Let us start our review from the highest level of these categories. FRA 2025 results show that naturally regenerating forests cover the vast majority, 92% of the world's total forest area. The remaining 8% is divided equally among the two categories that we just saw, plantation forest and the other planted forest. But what is happening within these categories? This graph shows the global annual net change of naturally regenerating forest between 1990 and 2025. Their area has decreased by some 324 million hectares within this period, and the decline continues. However, the rate of net loss of naturally regenerating forest has been reduced by almost half over the last 35 years, and is now down from about 14 million hectares per year in 1990 to 2000 to 7 million hectares per year in the last decade. Now, let's move on to the status of and trends in primary forests. According to the data reported to FRA, the world has at least 1.18 billion hectares of primary forests. In other words, almost 1/3 of the world's forests fall within this category. When looking at the trend of primary forest area net change, we can see that while the loss of primary forest was increasing from 3.5 million hectares per year in the 1990s to almost 4 million hectares per year in the period 2000 to 2015, we now observe a substantial reduction in their loss rate. In fact, the countries reported that the net loss of primary forest has more than halved in the last decade and is now at 1.6 million hectares per year. We hope that this reflects the results of the ongoing efforts in conservation of these biodiversity-rich forests, and that the work done on improving the reporting on primary forest will confirm these results in the coming years. Now, let's move on to our other main category, planted forest. We already saw that they account for 8% of the global forest area, but how have they changed over time? This chart illustrates the trend in the area of planted forest from 1990 to 2025. And as you can see, their area has increased globally. It has also done so in all the regions, although not shown in this graph. In total, this increase has been 120 million hectares. But again, we can see that the rate of their increase has slowed down in the last 10 years. In fact, it is now half of the annual rate observed in 2000 to 2015. Outside of this graph, I would like to mention that the largest absolute area of planted forest is in Asia at 146 million hectares, where this type represents 23% of the total forest area. This is also the largest proportion of any region. Now, let's dive into the subcategory and see that what kind of planted forests dominate in different regions of the world. This graph illustrates the share of plantation forest and other planted forest in different regions of the world. As already mentioned and visualized in the lowest bar in this graph, plantation forests account for about half of the area of the planted forest worldwide. The largest share of plantation forests is found in South America, where it constitutes nearly 100% of all planted forest. Also in Africa, Asia, and Oceania, most of the planted forests are plantation forests. In Europe, North and Central America, the share of plantation forest is significantly lower, and most of the planted forests fall under the other planted forest category. FRA 2025 results outside of this graph show also that plantation forests are dominated by introduced species in all other regions but Asia. In South America, 95% of plantation forests are composed of introduced species. Now, Let's move on to another set of key attributes that are closely linked among themselves: growing stock, biomass, and carbon. Before we look at the results of the stocks, let me remind you about something I said. Each FRA is a standalone product, and we encourage countries to revise also their past estimates when new and better data become available. FRA 2025 stock estimates are improved by many such updates, including from some of the largest forest area countries in the world. For example, the Russian Federation has calculated its stock estimates using the latest state forest inventory, which was completed in 2020. United States of America has adopted new national scale volume biomass estimators in 2023 and updated their entire FRA time series. In addition, countries including Canada, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and many, many others have updated their forest area estimates with better data. Now, let's see what these updates tell us. The analysis of the latest data indicate that the world's growing stock, biomass, and carbon are increasing. This graph focuses on the regional and global trend in the forest growing stock, or in other words, volume of the living trees. As you can see, there was a decline in the growing stock from 1990 to 2000, but from the year 2000 to 2025, the global forest growing stock has increased steadily and by about 6%. This global trend is a result of different regional dynamics. As you can see in the low brown, maybe it's brown, and the high red parts of these bars, the total growing stock in Africa and South America has decreased over time. In Asia, North and Central America, and in Europe, we can see a clear increase instead. Now, let's look at this in a bit more detailed way. The total growing stock trend is a result of dynamic of two factors: forest area and stock density. As you have already seen, the global forest area has decreased over the past decades. How is it then possible that the growing stock has increased? This graph helps us to address that question. As you may recall, our regional data showed that the forest area has increased in the past decades in Asia, in Europe, and in North and Central America. That increase, combined with an increase in the growing stock density in those regions, which you can see here, explains most of the global growing stock increase. In addition, the stock density increase in South America and to a lesser extent in Africa has compensated for part of the stock losses resulting from the reduction in forest areas. Now, because of the limited time, we will not look at the details of the biomass stocks, but jump directly to the forest carbon stock, which are highly correlated with them. Excuse me. You have already heard that the total carbon stock, including the above-ground biomass, below-ground biomass, soil, litter and deadwood, have increased since 2000. But let's have a quick look at where these stocks are found. The largest forest carbon stock is found in Europe, which holds 24% of the global forest carbon stock. The share of North and Central America is 22%, and South America constitutes 20% of the global total. This graph on screen illustrates that in all regions, with the exception of South America, where the above-ground biomass dominates the carbon stock, the largest carbon stock was reported to be found in the soil. In fact, globally, soils hold 46% of the total carbon stock. Naturally, you will find much more information on all the stocks and their trends in the FRA 2025 publications, which I believe that are online as we speak. Now, let's conclude this presentation with a couple of additional indicators, if you bear with me, of sustainable forest management. As many of you know, FAO is the custodian agency for many of the SDG indicators. One of them is indicator 15.2.1, which is progress towards sustainable forest management. This indicator includes 5 sub-indicators that you can see on the screen, and data for 4 of them are collected through the FRA country reporting process. Those indicators have to do with the forest area, above ground biomass, protected areas, and forest area under long-term forest management plans. The remaining indicator is forest area under independently verified forest management certification schemes, for which data are sourced straight from the certification bodies to ensure avoiding any issues of double counting. Now that we have already seen what is going on with the forest area and the stocks, let's see how the world is dealing with the protection and management plans. The area of forest within legally established protected areas worldwide is estimated at 813 million hectares, which is about 20% of the global forest area. Asia has the largest share of forest in protected areas at 26%. Among all the countries in the world, Indonesia has the second largest area of legally protected forest areas. Globally, the area of forest in protected areas has increased by some 251 million hectares since 1990, and while the rate of increase has slowed down over the years, the protected area is still increasing or remaining stable in all the regions of the world as illustrated in this graph. Finally, let's have a look at that other measure of sustainable forest management, the area of forest under long-term management plans. The forest area under long-term management plans has increased in all regions. Globally, it has increased by 365 million hectares since 1990, and is now reaching 55% of the total forest area of the reporting countries and areas. Europe has the highest percentage of forest under management plans at 94%. And as you can see in this slide, the share of forest having a long-term management plan exceeds 50% also in Asia and North and Central America. Excellencies, distinguished delegates and dear colleagues. This concludes my presentation on the FRA 2025 key findings, and let me just finalize with a few conclusions. First, as you have seen, we do have some good news to share. If we look at the past 25 years, the forest area has increased in most of the world's regions. Furthermore, where it is declining, the rate of decrease is slowing down. In addition, the loss of primary forest is declining, the area of protected forests is increasing, and forests are increasingly covered by long-term management plans. These are indeed good news and demonstrate that we are making progress in the right direction. But we need to do much more. Let us not forget that behind these positive trends, we are still converting almost 11 million hectares of forest to other land uses every year. And with this speed of reduction of deforestation, it will take us another 40 years to achieve our internationally agreed objective to halt deforestation. Furthermore, with the changing climate, our forests are facing new threats. FRA 2025 data outside of this presentation shows that fires affect an average of 261 million hectares of land annually. Nearly half of that is forest. In 2020 alone, insects, diseases, and severe weather damaged about 41 million hectares of forest, mainly in temperate and boreal regions. And given the problems in data availability on damages, this is likely to be a gross underestimate. Tackling all these challenges requires smart decisions that can be based only on timely and reliable data. Earlier this year, FAO, at the request of the countries, initiated a pilot on a new FRA reporting modality, which we call flexible voluntary updates. This modality allows countries and areas to update their FRA reports when new and better data become available and publish those data without unnecessary delays. I hope that all those countries and areas that are with us today and that are working on their national forest monitoring systems and improving them with the support of the GFOI community will use this opportunity and feed new data to the FRA process as soon as they become available. To learn more about these flexible voluntary updates and the work we do, please join our side event tomorrow afternoon. Finally, I would like to thank our resource partners, European Union, Global Environment Facility, as well as the governments of Norway, Finland and Switzerland for their invaluable support that make this process financially possible. And maybe I would like to express my sincere thanks on behalf of the FAO to all FRA national correspondents and other experts who have supported this process, including my wonderful team at the FAO. Thank you.